Donald Trump is so unstable that it has caused European vassal state leaders to maybe reconsider that relationship now. It certainly caused Mark Carney to do so. Mark Carney going to China and normalizing relations with China and opening up new avenues of trade with China is Mark Carney seeing the writing on the wall. I suspect that Donald Trump thinks this is a game of chicken. He is very simple, and he's very simple-minded. So might makes right, and I will just entertain this game of chicken against my allies over and over again, and they'll give in. So we'll see. All right. We're going to get started with Trump's Greenland threats. What Mark Stone learned from Washington insiders, ladies and gentlemen, or I guess no, this is the new list. China warns U.S. on Greenland. Stop using the China threat. I had the playlist already ready to go, Themasius. China warns the U.S. on Greenland. Stop using the China threat.
Verified our positions on Greenland multiple times. The international law based on the purposes and principles of the UN Charter.
Do you hate the Kurds because you're Turkish? Where did this come from? Also, I'm American. If there's one country that hates the Kurds, or at least over the Kurds just as hard as Turks, or rather utilizes the Turks to over the Kurds, it's the United States of America. Talk about Rojava. I already said I'm going to talk about it. Why does he make an inference like that? Because he's a baby. Okay, he's a stupid ass baby. That's why we are dying. Okay, take a week off. Okay.
The foundation of the existing international order, it must be safeguarded. We urge the U.S. side to stop using the so-called China threat to use.
Dang, a week seems a bit harsh. Okay, you take a full perma then.
As a pretext to gain selfish gains.
European leaders pushing back against President Trump's latest threat.
Nothing more annoying to me than who come in here while I already have like a run of show in mind. And then they just come in and go, no, you have to talk about this thing right now. And if you don't talk about the thing I want you to talk about right now, that implies that you're actually secretly harboring resentment, like ethnic resentment towards a group of people that you have defended over and over again. But it doesn't matter in this very moment because I'm going to get a clip off here and then continue along with this propaganda campaign to make it seem as though you're like a anti-Kurd Turk. I'm going to lean into like racialized narratives because obviously you're Turkish. So therefore, most people are already ready to either catch you in a hypocritical position because you're an anti-imperialist or rather lean into the racist ass sentiment about how you must clearly hate Kurds. It's just incredibly annoying. It's incredibly annoying. We're not playing that game, you know? It's just you're not being productive at all. You're just being a lame ass. Shut up. Shut your bitch ass up. Okay? This is not a democracy in here. There's always going to be back and forth. There's always going to be an open forum. But if you piss me off, I will turn into Stalin. Okay? I will just clap you. Okay? I need you to understand that because we can't have a normal, productive discussion. We cannot have a normal, productive discussion if you are constantly derailing. Shut your bitch ass up. Okay? I'm going to cover what I'm covering and I'm going to get to it eventually. Don't make me put you in the gulag. This is why he's a commentator and not a politician, folks. No politician should ever do a Twitch stream anyway.
On America's closest allies, escalating his demand to acquire Greenland. Trump now warning 8 key NATO allies, including Denmark, France, Germany, and the United Kingdom, that they will face tariffs, starting with 10% in February, until a deal is reached for the complete and total purchase of Greenland. Nearly 30 European ambassadors holding an emergency meeting Sunday. Allies now flocking to Greenland's defense.
Alliances endure because they're built on respect and partnership, not pressure.
Dude, Big Dick Daddy Starmer. Oh my God. I'm always thinking to myself, whenever there are whenever there's like any sort of geopolitical conflict going on, I think to myself, what will my goat, Kid Starver, say? Because you know he's going to crack the whip, okay? He's going to lay it down. He's going to lay down the law, baby. And I can't be alone in this, right? Like, chat, you guys also probably think like, you know, what will Keir Starmer do again? Like, he's such a revolutionary, you know? He's going to come out and he's going to say, I've been monitoring the situation from afar and I've been waiting on daddy to tell me what to do. He's a real mover and shaker. Him and Hakeem Jeffries and Chuck Schumer are my three goats, okay? These guys are the real anti-imperialists out there, okay? None of you know. What did you think anti-imperialism was? Tweets? Academic papers? No, you're looking at it, okay? This is real resistance. This is coalition of the willing. This is how you fight back against the American empire, by coming out and not even taking like a stern approach at all, just coming out and having the most lukewarm take that reinforces what everyone knows already, okay? You are, like, I can't even call him Chamberlain. Yeah, exactly. Like, Neville Chamberlain unironically had more motion than Keir Starmer. He is the Lion of London. Exactly. He is the Lion of London, okay? Oh God, he's so hot and so cool.
Greenland's defense.
He just always has such a good approach to these sorts of things. He'll be like Lion of Londonistan. They'll be like, Mr. Starmer, Israel has killed 100,000 Palestinians, and new reporting shows that the Royal Air Force was actually providing cover and offering new targets as Israel was conducting a genocide. And be like, we will be looking into this, and we will be issuing a stern warning to the Palestinian babies. Okay, they should not have been under the laser guided munitions if they wanted to survive. Have they thought about not being Palestinian? This is always looking into shit. He's got a busy job, dude.
Alliances endure because they're built on respect and partnership, not pressure. That is why I said the use of tariffs against allies is completely wrong.
The French president calling the tariff
Can he do that? Guys, can he say that? Can he say that? Completely wrong. Bro, he's getting real crazy, dude. He's going mental. That's a real mic drop moment from Kid Starver, dude. Wow. He's really done it now. Trump, any moment now, he has begun the process of thinking about issuing a sternly worded letter, a warning. Of course, only thinking about beginning the processes of what might be in that letter, a concept of a plan, if you will.
It's unacceptable. Sweden's prime minister saying we will not let ourselves be blackmailed. Only Denmark and Greenland decide on issues concerning Denmark and Greenland.
Okay, then what should he do? Deny visas to American travelers, say that you're shutting off the American embassy, immediately do reciprocal tariffs, immediately call up Xi Jinping and say, sir, I'm going to commit to much better trade relations with you. There's a bunch of things. Just it, dude. Just go crazy mode. I mean, Trump is going crazy mode. You might as well go crazy mode in retaliation for Trump going crazy mode. Because, like, guys, Donald Trump is talking about invading Europe. Like, that's it. Like, if he's gonna be a freak, you gotta match his freak. Desperate times call for desperate measures. Because people will go, oh, well, Hasan, these guys don't want to rock the boat. That means like more instability. You're inviting more instability. America's crazy. And it's like, yeah, exactly. It's kind of the same principle behind like what Trump is doing at the domestic front, right? Where Donald Trump is greatly escalating the tension here, and even talking about potentially utilizing the military, you know, calling the Insurrection Act, all this stuff. Like, these are unprecedented times. And people will go, oh, don't do anything. Like, don't do anything in retaliation. Like, you're giving into what he wants. And it's like, but he's already doing the chaos. Like, if you think this will lead to unprecedented lawlessness and disorder, well, we're there already. If you're living in Minneapolis, you're experiencing it every day. Your neighbors are afraid to go to work. Your neighbors are afraid to take their children to school. There's a fat Gestapo agent in every goddamn corner that's heavily militarized and seemingly has a license to kill. So that is already chaos, lawlessness, and disorder. So it's here already. So you must fight against it. Like, you must do something, right? Because if you roll over, it's just going to make it easier.
Allies already sending military forces to Greenland to protect against the U.S. Hundreds rallying on the Arctic island over the weekend.
We are not interested in being Americans.
But Trump isn't backing down, adamant.
Every time I hear someone say that, it's funny every time. Every time. Because it's like a fate worse than death is to be American by force. It's true. It's true. I know there's so many patriotic Americans out there who like don't understand this. But like, if you live in a country that has like at least existing social safety nets and stuff, why would you ever want to be under the thumb of America? I mean, look at Puerto Rico. Look at Puerto Rico. Like, look at what has happened to the island of Puerto Rico under the watchful eyes of American ownership. It's so stupid. Like, of course people don't want to lose the benefits of not being American while also still simultaneously being under the security apparatus that America has designed if you're in Europe. Because like, there are plenty of other places in the world where they're like, well, if we're a part of America, then yeah, things are better overall, right? There are plenty of countries in the world that we have destroyed and dominated that if we were to like bring in to like American statehood, things might be a market. Things might get to a market improvement as opposed to where they were, but only because we've destroyed them. But at least for a European country, right? If you are on the European continent, like, you are one of the very few places that America has not like directly destroyed. And therefore, you're like, no, I don't want this. I don't want to ruin things. You know, I don't want to ruin things further here.
That the U.S. needs control of the island as a matter of national security, and he's not ruling out using military force to take it. Greenland and Denmark have already offered to increase security in the region, but the administration says that's not enough.
If there were an attack on Greenland...
A poll in the Netherlands today revealed people are more afraid of Trump than Putin. Imagine that. Oh my God, finally, dude. Finally, people are like waking up. Oh my God. This isn't to say that Vladimir Putin is not a threat, by the way, but like, it's not even a question. Like, this is what I've been saying, guys. This is what I've been saying, and European liberals have been laughing at me and yelling at me over. Okay, it has finally gotten to a point where Donald Trump is literally doing like Vladimir Putin shit from the Western flank that Europeans are like, wait a minute, actually, this is not good at all. This is very, very bad. I didn't realize this. It took 1 year, law. Putin has been doing his thing since the Cold War. Exactly. The Okinawa effect. Okinawa literally had its urban design screwed by American occupation in comparison to the rest of Japan. Yes. Brother, trust me, regular Euros have been woken up. It's the leaders that are slow and dragging their feet. I don't know anyone who's here like, yeah, Trump. Yeah, you don't know anyone who's around you. And that's something that I stress all the time because they're all watching Asmongold. All of the Euros that are LARPing, as though they're like American right-wingers, which is such a strange position, but they exist. They're called fascists. And ironically enough, the like, when you're a fascist, you're supposed to be like promoting this sense of like national sovereignty, right? Like at least historically, that's what fascism was about. This idea that like there's this national mythos, your people, your ethnicity, or your religion is like above everyone else's, and like, you know, and therefore you're fighting for the sovereignty of your nation. We used to be a proud nation, all this stuff. Nowadays, the international fascist movement is whatever the American fascist movement is. Like they get their notes from America, which is ironic because y'all invented fascism, right? And sure, you took a lot of notes from America in the invention of European fascism. Let's be real. Adolf Hitler basically was stealing our, Jim Crow laws and death and destruction of the entire indigenous population when he was like writing his own version of what ethnic cleansing was going to look like in Germany. But having said that, the assumption here, at least historically, is that like Europeans basically, perfected their own version of fascism. And yet now Euro-fascists, ironically enough, they've like molded into this weird like American MAGA style version of fascism, and it doesn't make any sense. Like there is this international consortium of fascists now. Okay, it has become an internationalist movement. It's no longer, people aligned with one another. Like fascist movements align with one another by need, but more so, the entire ideology is very Americanized, and it's genuinely shocking. Yeah, I mean, this is what I was calling out last night. I think it makes sense given the prevalence of U.S. culture exported via social media. Yeah, but to be honest, these Euro MAGAs are the dumbest people to ever exist, and nobody takes them seriously, at least in the Netherlands. It has been for years, but that's just the thing. When I ranted and raved about Steve Bannon in like 2020, nobody cared. Now they do. I hope the liberals are waking up. I really, really hope that the liberals are waking up. But it is funny that, it's oxymoronic to think about having an international ultra-nationalist movement that is entirely about a political movement and political goals and a political ambition of another country that will inevitably make you a vassal, like further vassalize your country. That's what's so strange about this. Because like internationalism under the traditional socialist movement makes a lot of sense, because the idea is that we are all united on our class position, right? Like it's totally normal. It's totally normal. And historically, that's how, the USSR operated as well. It makes sense that socialism is an internationalist movement. It kind of doesn't make sense that fascism would be an international movement, because fascism is ultranationalism. If I had a nickel for every time Hasan stole my joke, I'd have 2 nickels, which isn't much, but it's weird it happened twice. Stole your joke. I just pulled you up to give you praise for your take. What the f is wrong with you? Anyway, it is very strange, though. Like I said, it is very, very, very strange.
From Russia, from some other area, we would get dragged in. So better now, peace through strength, make it part of the United States, and there will not be a conflict.
The U.S. already operates a military base in Greenland, and a long-standing treaty allows the U.S. to expand its military presence on the island.
The only security threat to Greenland right now is the United States.
Even some Republicans fear the president is putting the nation's most important alliance in jeopardy.
If he wants to purchase Greenland, that's one thing, but for him to militarily invade would turn Article 5 of NATO on its very head and, in essence, put us at war with NATO itself.
Like, listen, I'm in a very weird position here, because on the one hand, I do want America to greatly scale back its mechanism of control and dominance around the world, and NATO plays a formative role here. So Trump blowing up NATO to a certain degree, I hope will push Europe to demand sovereignty, right? I really, really want that to happen, because I think that it will be objectively better for the world if Europe had a level of sovereignty from, American dominance. It would, at the very least, make things easier for socialist movements to grow in European countries in the same way that I hope a socialist movement can grow in the United States of America and has been growing at least to a certain degree. Okay? But if you are in any way, shape, or form invested in like American hegemony around the world, then the NATO Atlanticists are right. They're just right. I'm not invested in that at all. I think that's been a cancerous entity in general. It's been a cancerous alliance that has greatly allowed America to do whatever it wants and kill so many people, kill countless people, right? And has ripped away the opportunity for Europe to develop its own, like maybe reformist, democratic, socialist movements, right? Who knows what that would have looked like in the absence of NATO? But for me, this puts me in a unique predicament because on the one hand, he's killing NATO, even though I don't think he will, because that seems like it just doesn't seem to be in America's interest at all. Like it would ruin the military-industrial complex. Like it comes with a lot of penalties for American capital owners. So unless he has his own guys that believe that they can make money regardless, I don't know. But killing soft power was also stupid because soft power plays a role in continuing these alignments as like security cooperations rather than military invasions. So he did that already. So I don't know. It doesn't make sense. It doesn't make sense at all. But then again, if you recall, last time I got a prediction very wrong, it was with Vladimir Putin. And why did I get that prediction very wrong? Now, of course, my haters will say it's because I'm a Putinist or a Duginist or whatever the fuck, right? But the reason why I got that prediction wrong was because it was not a sound move by Vladimir Putin, okay? Just like Donald Trump's invasion of Venezuela, which, let's say is a special military operation because he hasn't like fully committed to an invasion yet, even though the carriers and the strike teams are still surrounding Venezuela. But like what he's doing in Venezuela is just insane. It doesn't make any sense. It doesn't make any sense at all. Because if foreign policy is uniparty, whether it's a Democrat doing it or whether it's a Republican doing it, right? And the goal overall is to project power around the globe and be the domineering force, the hegemonic superpower. And that is usually what the goal is for both Republicans and Democrats to continue that process. The NATO Atlanticists are right in the way that they have designed the system, whether it be U.S. aid and soft power initiatives, destabilizing countries, utilizing these like civil society organizations and NGOs, sanctions to cripple the economy and the really cause a ruckus and destabilization in these places, only to then have your own guys on the ground due to all of the soft power initiatives that you already implemented, go up and take up arms and do a revolution, right? Like there's a reason why it's not working in a place like Iran, because Iran is like so shut off from the rest of the world that it's much more difficult to activate people on the ground. And I don't know. I don't know what Donald Trump is doing here. I don't know what Donald Trump is doing as far as like entertaining the invasion of Greenland, because it just completely rips apart the NATO alliance. Or I guess for him, in his mind, this will solidify to all of the American allies of Europe that America's the big dog and you have no sovereignty. Where will that go? I don't know. But one thing I have seen, and if you recall, during Liberation Day, one of the things that I talked about was the xenophobia and the anti-communist sentiment that European leaders have, right? And how I said this is the reason why they have a lot of resistance to aligning with China in any way, shape, or form, even though China, right now in this day and age, is the manufacturing hub of the planet with an economy that is geared around consistently manufacturing products for everybody else, wants to maintain global trade stability as opposed to the United States of America that is like very clearly breaking it apart, so that these guys are supposed to align with China or at least leverage their relationship with China to tell America that they need to stand down. But the only restraint there was the fact that they're terrified of communism and they're terrified of China. Donald Trump is so unstable that it has caused European vassal state leaders to maybe reconsider that relationship now. It certainly caused Mark Carney to do so, right? Mark Carney going to China and normalizing relations with China and opening up new avenues of trade with China is Mark Carney seeing the writing on the wall. Okay? The question now is whether European leaders will also recognize that. But I suspect that he thinks it's, I suspect that Donald Trump thinks this is a game of chicken. He is, in some ways, not a very complex man, especially when it comes to trade and when it comes to like deal making in general. He is very simple and he's very like simple-minded, right? He's like, America's the greatest superpower on the planet, 800 military bases that we know of, all these aircraft carriers, we can be anywhere all at once, we can dominate whoever the fuck we want. So might makes right, and I will just entertain this game of chicken against my allies over and over again, and they'll give in. So we'll see. We shall see if this game of chicken works. Here is defense editor of The Economist with a similar assessment. Right now, a real risk of spiral. Europeans who are already using unprecedented language, blackmail, intimidation, threat, refuse to back down or push back with retaliatory tariffs. U.S. then expands coercion from tariffs to security. Could start by suspending weapon sales for Ukraine and halting intel sharing again. Then step up to actions directly hurting NATO, such as withdrawing select forces from Europe. The admin believes it has escalation dominance and that Europe will fold. See Besson interview yesterday where he gloated over European dependency and risk of Ukrainian collapse. Then there's also some in the admin who believes a step back from NATO would be healthy and desirable. Easily the most serious crisis in the transatlantic relationship in either Trump's two terms, perhaps since Suez. Do you see? I think they're playing chicken, and their gamble here, their bet here is that Europe backs away. That Europe says, yes, you can do whatever you want. You can take Greenland. Do you see? But what does that mean? Like, if Europe allows America to take Greenland, then America takes Canada. Okay? At least, I don't know. I feel like if Europe is like, okay, you can take Greenland, then yeah, okay, Canada's next. You know what I mean? Maybe the UK is next. Like, I don't know. I don't know anymore, right? The last NATO defender was right. Dog. What I'm trying to explain to you is that NATO robbed Europe of its sovereignty. This was a concept that at least like Charles de Gaulle understood, right? And other European leaders understood initially. NATO robbed Europe of its sovereignty by really leaning into the anti-communist fears. And now Europe needs to make its own security agreement separate from America, because now Donald Trump is doing what Europeans were fearful that the USSR was going to do to Europe. If the whole purpose of NATO is to lean into the anti-communist Red Scare fears, fears that the USSR will overtake and, move their tanks all the way into Berlin and, move past it and go to France and go to England and like take over and make the, greatly expand the Soviet states. Right? If that's the fear that Europe had, well, okay, now we're making it the United States. Instead of the Soviet states from your eastern flank, now you have to, for the first time ever, sincerely worry about the United States from your western flank. Yeah, we're scared of the wrong red. You guys can take the UK, literally no one would complain. Take France with it, please. Look, there's still people doing this. Do you know what the USSR did to all post-Soviet countries? Of course we like NATO. It's not communism versus capitalism. It's having your whole family sent to the gulag. Oh. When I hear stuff like this, okay, of people still relitigating the USSR, okay, in 2026, as we are mere seconds away from America overtaking Greenland by force, it kind of makes me feel like you deserve what's coming next, okay? like I don't know what to tell you. Like, you're still You're still worried about the wrong red, brother. That red don't exist no more. Like you're worried about your wrong flank. Lock in. It's crazy to me. Joe Biden might live long enough to see NATO disappear. I mean, I guess, yeah, there's one thing. Stop laughing. It's serious. I can't help but laugh at a guy who, while we're discussing America invading Greenland by force, okay, a piece of the European continent by force, he's still going, well, remember historically when all of the Eastern Bloc nations were under the control of the Soviets? Like, what the are you saying, dude? What are you saying? Yeah, okay, that's a good joke. Yeah, the red you should be worried about is called Red 40, okay? It's a chemical dye that's going to basically disrupt your hormone production because you're getting it. Like, you're going to get the red hats, and you're going to get the Red 40, and you're going to get the super cancer, and you're still worried about the Soviets for some reason. Jesus Christ. Russia is literally attacking Ukraine as we speak. USA becoming this terrible threat doesn't negate the other threat. He says as Russia takes Ukraine. Okay, you're on your own. I mean, good luck, chatters. Good luck. Good luck to all of you. I'm not even talking about like Russia's overtaking of Ukraine. Okay, first of all, Russia's not the USSR. Secondly, you're getting on one side from Russia, but on the other side, you're getting even harder from America, and you still think that that's not happening. That's my point. My point is, if you think that like, oh, Russia is doing the USSR and all this shit, okay, at a time when Russia is overtaking Ukraine by force and America is overtaking Greenland by force, you have to look for alternative alliances. We about the Eiffel Tower, you Euro cucks? Yeah, I know. I think mostly everyone in the EU is very aware of what America's doing. I think there's still if I were to ask people in Europe, if I were to poll people like, who do you think is like scarier? Like, what do you think is a bigger threat? Until recently, they said Russia. It's only until recently that they changed that to the United States of America is now a bigger threat. And of course, that's partially because America did not ever entertain invading the European continent by force until Donald Trump. But now it's actually, now it's polling, and at least according to one of the chatters in the Netherlands and in the UK, that like they are treating Donald Trump as a bigger threat than Vladimir Putin. But the reason why I say I'm in a weird predicament is because I want Europe to have sovereignty. I want European people to be able to liberate themselves from the same exact unjustifiable constructs that have been ruining their lives under capitalism, you know, hyper exploitation and the destruction of social safety nets that they had, and no longer their capability to no longer have like the same quality of life that they once had. All of this stuff is a direct byproduct of not only capitalism, but also defended by this NATO allegiance. So I think like breaking NATO apart is not necessarily the worst thing unless Europe is able to maintain sovereignty by seeking out different partners, at least different partners to leverage their relationship with the United States of America. Because like, yeah, bro, just say China. I mean, I say China all the time. From the Financial Times, EU leaders and their delegations who are set to meet Trump and U.S. officials at the World Economic Forum starting in Davos today are tearing up their Ukraine briefing notes and replacing them with what one senior EU diplomat described as carrots and sticks. How Brussels could retaliate against the tariffs alongside offers to de-escalate. How can you sit down across the table with this guy and discuss the security guarantees to Ukraine, the diplomat added. You can't trust them unless you suspend reality. I think people should have understood this by now. America and Israel are basically the same. Okay, they only respond to force. They only respond to pressure. That's it. So you have to pressure us. I'm telling you, in order to save yourself, in order to preserve some semblance of sovereignty, which you really haven't had for like, you know, in the new design, it was only sovereignty in name only. It was this aesthetic sovereignty. But in order to like actually get sovereignty, you have to push back on us. Okay. That's it. We only respond, just like Israel, we only respond to military. Israel only responds to military deterrence, and America only responds to economic deterrence and pushback. Okay? That's it. We're f***ed up. If we're doing might is right politics, you have to also be mighty. Cut our treats off. Punish us.
Now, the president's new tariff threat comes as the Supreme Court could hand down a decision on whether or not the president's sweeping tariffs are legal at any moment, possibly as soon as tomorrow. Now, the White House insists the president has the authority to impose these kinds of tariffs during a national emergency, but pressed on what kind of national emergency justifies tariffs on European allies, Treasury Secretary Scott Bessent saying, quote, the national emergency.
Bro, this guy's still talking about the Baltics, bro. Oh my God. Oh my God. You know what would happen to the Baltics without NATO? Brother. They're taking Western Europe. Like, what Baltics, dude? You're over here talking about the Baltics. First of all, NATO doesn't give a shit about the Baltics, okay? You're just cannon fodder. You're cannon fodder. You are cannon fodder. Please, if Russia had a more powerful military, you would learn about how little NATO gives a shit about all the Baltics, okay? Or at least America gives a shit about the Baltics. But once again, you're just a buffer zone between the countries that actually matter versus the only country that truly matters, the United States of America and Russia or the USSR. Yeah, you're basically just a missile sponge, and you're over here talking about the Baltics when America is taking Western Europe. Get real.
Is avoiding a national emergency. Rebecca.
Well, and that will be a highly consequential Supreme Court decision. Thank you, Mary.
An extraordinary new development in President Trump's push to take over Greenland as European leaders meet to discuss an emergency response to his new tariff threat. The president sent a letter to Norway's prime minister. According to a diplomat who's seen the note, he wrote in part, quote, "Dear Jonas, considering your country decided not to give you
I can say, like, this is one of those unique moments for sure where I can tell you sincerely that, like, a Democrat or any other Republican really other than Trump would not be taking Greenland. Okay. Like, normally I don't entertain these sorts of hypotheticals. Because they're unproductive. They're stupid. But this is one of those things where you can actually say with almost absolute certainty that this would not be happening. If there was like Marco Rubio is a war hawk and a psycho, and he definitely would do the Venezuela operation, perhaps even worse than the way Donald Trump is conducting it so far. But he definitely would not be taking Greenland. Okay? Like, and he also would not be sending letters to the Norwegian prime minister to turn around and be like, hey, just so you know, I'm doing this because you made it so that peace was not as good for me because I was the great peaceful president and you didn't give me a Nobel Peace Prize. Yeah, this is a really funny. I mean, this is also another testament to how goddamn cucked all of these animals are. Here it is.
We need someone with judgment and the temperament to keep this country safe. I don't know anyone who would be comfortable with someone who behaves this way having his finger on the button. I mean, we're liable to wake up one morning and Donald, if he were president, would have nuked Denmark. That's not...
10 years later, partially because this cuck also helped him out, we're there.
Nobel Peace Prize for having stopped 8 wars plus. I no longer feel an obligation to think purely of peace, although it will always be predominant, but can now think about what is good and proper for the United States of America. CNN's Melissa Bell joins us live from Paris this morning. The Prime Minister of Norway now saying, yeah, that's the letter I got from President Trump talking about the Nobel Peace Prize. It's a pretty remarkable development.
It's a remarkable tone that struck in that letter, dear Jonas, that fit of pique almost at not having received the Nobel Peace Prize used as justification for all that we've seen over the course of the weekend. And that is, John, this extraordinary ratcheting up of this pressure on Europe to try and force them essentially to hand over or sell Greenland to the United States, which is an extraordinary turn of events that now tariffs should be being used at this particular moment to try and exert pressure on Europe. And that timing is really unfortunate, John, for a number of reasons. First of all, because in front of European lawmakers was due this week the very deal that was signed last summer to avert a trade war between the United States and Europe, the trade deal that sets American tariffs at 15% and that prevents the European Union from imposing levies on the United States. What we understand now is that European lawmakers are not going to pass that deal as a result of these renewed threats of fresh tariffs on European Union countries. What that means is that if the deal is not agreed upon, the retaliatory 93 billion euro worth of European counter tariffs that had been threatened at the time before the deal was reached would come into effect in February. So really what you're seeing is the European Union preparing to answer very forcefully after a great deal of outrage expressed over the course of the last couple of days as a result of the...
Dude, it was a text message. It wasn't even a letter. Statement from the Prime Minister of Norway. What does Knut think about this? Does he now think this guy is crazy? Statement from the Prime Minister Jonas Gahr Støre regarding communications with President Donald Trump. I can confirm that this is a text message that I received yesterday afternoon from President Trump. It came in response to a short text message from me to President Trump, sent earlier on the same day on behalf of myself and the President of Finland, Alexander Stubb. In our message to Trump, we conveyed our position to his announced tariff increases against Norway, Finland, and select other countries. We pointed to the need to de-escalate and proposed a telephonic conversation between Trump, Stubb, and myself the same day. The response from Trump came shortly after the message was sent. Never use an accent again. These accent impressions are so good. How often do you practice? The duality of chat. It was his decision to share his message with other NATO leaders, said Prime Minister Jonas Gahr Støre. Norway's position on Greenland is clear. Greenland is part of the Kingdom of Denmark, and Norway fully supports the Kingdom of Denmark on this matter. We fully support that NATO, in a responsible way, is taking steps to strengthen security and stability in the Arctic. As regards to the Nobel Peace Prize, I have clearly explained, including to President Trump, that is well known. The prize is awarded by an independent Nobel committee and not the Norwegian government. It's like I'm in Norway right now. Yeah. Do accents, but never Scandi accents. Okay, everyone getting up in their fifis knows that that's a perfect Norwegian accent. Trump told NBC News that Norway's lying. Trump won't say whether he would... wait, what? Trump won't say whether he would use force to seize Greenland. Trump dismissed the idea that Norway has no sway over the Nobel Peace Prize competition. Oh my God. Oh my God. He literally... Dude, this kind of stuff, for me, when I see this kind of stuff where I'm like, oh, come on. Like, Donald Trump is not being that petty. He is not that much of a petty tyrant. And then there's additional reporting that comes out that confirms that he is absolutely that kind of a petty tyrant. And like, it blows my mind. It blows my mind. Like, when the first story came out that Donald Trump had a back and forth with the Norwegian leadership on this, I was like, there's no way. This is so stupid. Like, come on, this got to be like a liberal exaggeration. Okay? This got to be liberal media doing, not Trump derangement syndrome necessarily, but like they're being a little silly, right? Like, they're being a little crazy. Like, it cannot be because Donald Trump is genuinely butthurt that he didn't get the Nobel Peace Prize. So then the Norwegian Prime Minister comes out and says, no, actually, that is a real conversation that took place. And then Donald Trump confirms it absolutely is a real conversation that took place. And he doesn't believe that the Norwegian government has no sway over the Nobel Peace Prize, confirming the suspicions that we all had. What is happening? What the is going on, man? Look at this. Wait, what is this? demonstration protest in front of the American embassy in Denmark in support of Greenland from my friend Dan. By the way, this is just how people in Denmark look. They actually are the happiest people in comparison to, like, on the happiness polls, on happiness metrics, they're far happier than Americans. They just look that way all the time. This isn't even because they're just mad at America, okay? This isn't because they're mad at America. They just look like that all the time. They are very happy. They have, what? Store and get a points, the members of the Nobel Committee. Brother, I don't care if Norway... You're missing the point. Chatter. The point is not whether the Norwegian government has sway over these decisions or not. The point is that is an impossibly stupid reason to rip apart a long-standing security alignment that America has eaten good off of, that basically has allowed the military-industrial complex to become this behemoth that it is. Like, who cares about the Nobel Peace Prize, man? What are you talking about? They gave it to Machado. The government before this one appointed them. Högre. Okay, again, I need you to... It doesn't matter if it's directly this current prime minister or the previous one or the previous government was making these decisions unilaterally. You know, that's so stupid. It is utterly irrelevant. The Nobel Peace Prize is basically as worthless as the FIFA Peace Prize, okay? Especially considering who they've given it to or how many people that they've given it to have ended up doing like their own version of ethnic cleansing. You know, clearly it's irrelevant. It doesn't mean anything. The peace side, at least, right?
Jeg har ikke tenkt å gå inn og kommentere hver setning I den SMS-en. Han veldig opptatt av Nobelprisen. Og jeg har forklart han lenge at det en pris som deles ut av en norsk komité. Wow,
I was so off with my accent, by the way. It's an award given by a Norwegian committee. Not the Norwegian government. I'm happy to repeat that. But I do believe, I've always thought, we're very focused on the Peace Prize. That's not a bad thing. It means they're interested in doing something that qualifies them for an award that's about peace, but it's not something I make decisions about, and that needs to be emphasized. You said he knows it, but he doesn't. Why do you think he uses the Peace Prize in this way? You'll have to go over there and ask him. I can't answer that. Yeah, I speak Norwegian, by the way. Have you replied to the message? No, I haven't. He ghosted him. He ghosted our big, beautiful boy. Norway's next. Norway's next. I guess we got to take over Norway. That's it. It's over. You left him on red, bro? Are you crazy? Bro, don't say that. I live there. Yeah, GG's oil rich. Oh my God. Oil rich nation that has nationalized its extraction industries? Are you kidding me? It's over. It's over. Norway is next, dude. Stop giving him ideas. I'm not giving him ideas. The leadership is. Greenland is just a test. He wants Greenland so he can use it as a staging ground to invade Norway. Oh my God. He's going to rename it to Our Way. Oh, no. Oh, Jesus Christ. Get ready to eat so many burgers, dude. Bro is going to share a cell with Maduro. As a Swede, please do. Bitch, if we're taking Norway, we're taking Sweden too. What do you mean? Y'all already took the worst time to join NATO. I can't think of a worst possible time to join NATO as a country. Like, think about how ginormous of a misstep that was. You join NATO, okay, because Brandon comes in and says, we're gonna do the NATOization of Finland. And you turn around and you join NATO. And then Trump is like, yeah, well, guess what? It's burger time, okay? No more social safety nets. We will replace your healthcare with burger. Every IKEA will be selling hamburger. No more of that Swedish meatball. I've heard it's Turkish anyway. I've heard that the Turks invented the meatball. Who would want that? You want to take the meatball and squash it into a burger-like substance. Every Swede will eat burger from this day on.
Nei, jeg har vel ikke svart på meldingen.
Nei, I went to the phone call with him yesterday about these issues along with the Finnish president. And it just wasn't possible. I suppose I signaled that we will think such a conversation will be wise. How will you respond to this message? I've already responded to that. I still believe it's wise to talk. I'm likely traveling to the Davos meeting where Trump will be present, and I'll have a chat with him then. Like the Venezuelan opposition, Europeans believe that it's really about the Nobel Prize at their own peril. Trump is just doing a classic mafioso power move. Say that the Don is very unhappy with this disrespect and you need to come up with a way to please him. Yeah, I mean, I do agree with this, by the way. Yes, Matt Petty is correct. And he is usually very correct. He's got very good assessment in general. I'm thinking the Norwegians should take the hit for the team and give Trump a super duper special Nobel Peace Prize. They can revoke it and damnatio memoriae him in 3 years. Yeah, it's not about the Peace Prize. It's not. He's just throwing shit at the wall. It's not just like it wasn't about Maduro's dancing. You know what I mean? Like, it plays somewhat of a role, but it's not the major thing. Like, it's not the real reason. It's just like he's just annoyed with that, and he's just saying like, yeah, fuck you. You already fucked me. Bro, are you finally going to move to Canada? We're getting Chinese EVs. I know you're jealous. Also, your accents are racist towards Norwegians, and as a Canadian, I've experienced this many times here as well. Why would I move to Canada if I could just directly move to China? I mean, I think the smart steps for China would be to vassalize every single Five Eyes nation, with the exception of the obvious one, right? Like, Australia is already a vassal state. Like, it's like half owned by China, half owned by America. And considering that Australia is in China's backyard, right? If we're using American style terminology here, you know, Donro Doctrine and then Xi Jinping's very own doctrine, Australia becomes a part of China, right? And then Canada is the reverse Cuban Missiles crisis for China. America tries to utilize Taiwan and Japan, but specifically Japan. And then China uses Canada against America. All of those EV fleets that they can command just start driving to the American border. If we do take over Canada, do we have to keep the French or nah? You have to. Get a Canadian citizenship, then go to China with your new free visa. I don't think Canada is going to be giving me a citizenship anytime soon. Let's be real. Can we send XQC back to mainland France, though? I mean, I don't want to punish the French any further than we're already punishing them. They already have to deal with Macron, who sucks. Like, you know, I don't know. I mean, I guess the accelerationist in me would think that if we sent the Lion of Laval to France, then people would be so grossed out by American sovereignty and American actions that they would, like, La France insoumise would get, or is that how you say it? I don't know. But France en bas would get like 100% support. France would be, LFI would be busting out the guillotines. Insoumise. La France insoumise. You're wrong that we get hypnotized by the worm and vote XQC. Trade Macron for XQC. That's a good trade. I know that inside of you is an avid Hearts of Iron 4 player. This entire assessment just reinforces that notion. Let him out, Hasan. He's screaming. Okay. All right. Let's continue with this.
these renewed threats. The reimposition, therefore, of retaliatory tariffs being prepared even now by the European Commission, even though officially what we've heard this morning from the Commission spokesman, John, is that Europe is looking for de-escalation, they're looking for compromise, dialogue and negotiation, even as they prepare for these very forceful tactics. And beyond the imposition of these frozen retaliatory tariffs lies the possibility of what's been described as the bazooka option. This is the Europeans' anti-coercion tool, which would see an even greater number of limits placed on the United States' access to European markets. So a ratcheting up of the pressure, but a ratcheting up as well of the response, even as negotiation is sought, John.
Yeah, talking in ways they really just haven't before. Melissa Bell in Paris this morning. Thank you. With us now is retired Major General James Spider Marks, our friend. He is the head of...
This is my favorite. Guys, we're back. We're back. We got spider rapists in the building. And now we're tuning into retired general's spider rapist.
Geopolitical strategy at Academy Securities. And Spider, how does something like this land overseas? All these European leaders now and officials have been meeting, trying to figure out how to deal with the United States on this issue. And then they see this letter about the Nobel Peace Prize to the Prime Minister of Norway.
Yeah, it doesn't land very well. I mean, when you look at policies like this, or at least moving in this direction, the potential of embracing some type of a policy, I think many would say why it's being done makes sense. The United States needs to, should have a much more enhanced relationship with Greenland.
The lore behind me calling him spider rapist is because, like, a lot of American generals have these, like, you know, Hideo Kojima ass names. So I just greatly exaggerated one time before knowing that there was a major general named James Spider Marks. And then, you know, I just kind of ran with it. Like, that's just, yeah, Mad Dog Mattis. Like, there is a bunch of guys, like, whose names are just, like, insane.
Albeit we have one established in 1951, an agreement that allows the United States to have military access, and it kind of essentially, in my terms, provides cooperation between those two, one autonomous nation or autonomous entity to Denmark and the United States. So that can be identified and say, yeah, this is a good deal. But when you look at how the president in this administration is addressing the possibility of enhancing that gets very problematic in my mind. I think, cutting to the chase, the United States is not going to use military power to embrace Greenland or move.
Don't predict it, General Spider. Don't predict it. Look, I've made this mistake. I know in your mind you're thinking, well, sound analysis, logic, and reasoning implies that Donald Trump won't do such an insane thing. Okay? I'm just saying. I've been there, okay?
Greenland in a direction more favorable toward the United States. And again, we already have a favorable relationship. Let's not harm that. But provocative language like this really gets our allies moving in a direction of hazarding what's going to happen to NATO if the United States suddenly...
He's a real analyst, though. Brother, I don't think you understand. Having the background or the experience of, like, you know, conducting wars at the behest of American empire, and trying to apply logic to what Donald Trump is trying to do right now is stupid. And I have always maintained the position that you cannot ascribe irrationality to state actors, okay? Because there's always a logical through line. And even non-state actors as well. Both non-state actors and state actors clearly still operate on, like, some kind of logical through line. The problem here is Donald Trump doesn't really do that, okay? I mean, with Venezuela, we saw a version of this, right? You're just not applying the right logic. No, there is not like a super... If the higher priority is to maintain American hegemony, and that's what's supposed to be the highest priority for, you know, the American president, then everything that he is doing is objectively illogical, irrational. That's why I keep saying, like, as someone who is in this, like, unique position where I'm not a NATO Atlanticist, I don't want American domination and American, global war to continue. Like Donald Trump is actually doing that right now. He's moving in a way where he is actually crippling American empire around the world. Just like I always said, he's basically doing things that is allowing for the Chinese century of prosperity to come much faster. I mean, we're already in it, but I think it's telling that we haven't gotten an actually Twitter thread from Vance or any kind of statements of support from like Rubio or Graham about the Greenland bullshit. He's really just gone rogue on this one and no one knows how to talk him out of it. So what I also want to know is like, how is Asmongold navigating this treacherous space? Because given that most of his audience is like European MAGA hogs, most of his audience is like Euro hogs that LARP as American MAGA guys, but they also kind of don't like that Donald Trump is like embarrassing Europe. I suspect that he's just not talking about one of the biggest news stories of the week, right?
Says, okay, this is more important. Greenland's more important. This course of action is more important than our relationship to NATO, and NATO will atrophy. It'll become something entirely different than it is right now if the United States is not a part of NATO. So you can connect those dots pretty quickly.
Yeah, let's drill down on that last part you were just saying there. Do the rules?
My guess is he'll side with Europe. Yeah, he will. He knows where his bread is buttered. So considering that the majority of his audience is European, as opposed to the majority of my audience is American, it's ironic that he's supposed to be like the patriotic pro-America guy, and I'm supposed to be the unpatriotic un-American guy, but his audience is all European. My audience is all American. He has to take this position where he can't actually defend Donald Trump on this issue because his audience got very mad and pushed back on him when he first said, yeah, it's based. How do you know his audience is European? He's polled his audience.
Awards from U.S. control.
It's okay, Hasan. We think you unpatriotic enough. Brother, the concept of patriotism should not be measured by how stupid or how violent you want the nation state to get. Okay? It's a silly metric. It's an entirely stupid metric. That's why I say I care about people. I care about human beings. I don't care about nation states. I don't have any sort of like nationalistic fervor. I only match state performance off of how well they've done by their poorest. Okay, how much have they improved the lives of regular ass people? That's it. You and Asmongold are the same two American shitbag. Judging by your logs, you seem to bounce between hate watching Hasan, Asmon, XU, Nico, etc. Why do something else? Anything else? This is really sad. That's pretty funny. Just a guy who hates like every Western streamer and just goes into all their chats. He's an equal opportunity hater. I respect it. What is this? Asmongold on Greenland?
Because Greenland isn't for sale? Well, why is it not for sale? Why do they not want to sell it, right? I mean, because like that's an interesting question. Why would Denmark not want to sell Greenland? I mean, Denmark is a relatively well-off country, but like, why would they have this territory that, you know, it only has like 50,000 people in it? And why would they not want to sell that territory if they think it would be beneficial, right? So yeah, they're negotiating, exactly. Everything's for sale, absolutely. And like, yeah, I mean, I'm not even arguing you should do it, but like, I mean, shit, Greenland doesn't want to be sold. Well, I mean, I don't know if Greenland does or doesn't want to be sold on. Honestly, but you know, like there were, like from what I saw is that there was polling that showed that the majority of Greenlanders actually would want to have independence, but they view that independence would lower their standard of living, and so they don't want it. So they would want independence, assuming that the standard of living maintained. So I don't.
How does that have anything to do with America? That's independence from potentially Denmark. The argument here is about whether Greenland should be sold to America or not. It is utterly irrelevant.
I don't even really think that's necessarily true, but you know, who the f knows? The locals want it. I mean, some do, some don't, right? It's complex. And is Greenland really obligated to sell Greenland? I mean, Denmark, are they obligated? I don't think so. I mean, I'm just talking about it. But yeah, I don't know really why the fixation on Greenland is happening. I think it's important, sure. But like, as I said, I just think that we have so many.
Yeah, it's not so based, is it? When your audience is entirely MAGA dick riders that love LARPing as American MAGA, but American MAGA ends up treating Greenland like it's Venezuela, all of a sudden it's not so based, it seems. How come? How come this guy who has defended pretty much every single incursion that Donald Trump has made is all of a sudden taking a very different, much more restrained stance? Yeah, I don't know. Yeah, maybe not so based to take over Europe. Yeah, is that a recent clip? I suspect it is, because initially he did say it was based, and then his subreddit exploded. He said, yeah, it's based. It's super based to take Greenland. And then his subreddit yelled at him and was like, Asmongold, I'm actually a European MAGA supporter and I don't like what you're saying. Why would you be saying that, you stupid Americanish? If we are not Venezuela, we are not Iraq, we are Europe, yeah? Why would you say this? Not good. And then he quickly had to find like a Asmonfold moment. It quickly had to find like a reasonable middle ground here. You know? Don't make fun of me. So now he has to take this now he has to climb on this fence to present this reasonable approach to Donald Trump's incredibly unreasonable and completely insane treatment of every country. The difference between me and a lot of people in Europe, of course, not like the MAGA, European fascists, but like even the rest of like European liberals who might think that it's totally appropriate. He had to apologize for calling for an invasion of Greenland.
I'm gonna throw you a bone, okay? I'm gonna throw you a bone, and I'm going to offer something that is extremely rare. I'm gonna offer an apology. I didn't know that Denmark has done so much to help the United States. Somebody gave me a list of things that Denmarks and Danes have done in coordination with the United States, especially in the Iraq War. I think I underplayed you guys. I did. I was being an asshole. I was wrong. The truth is that you guys have been a great ally to us. And
that's the only reason why America shouldn't be invading Greenland, because the Danish actually helped with its intelligence consistently. And also because they were also there for the invasion of Iraq. Okay.
As I said before, I don't really agree with us taking Greenland, but hopefully maybe we can buy it. I don't want us to take Greenland from you guys, okay? So somebody did link me that, and I do want to say that, okay? Because I try to correct myself. I was wrong for saying that.
How many Danes? It's not just Danes, it's Europeans. European right-wingers love what Donald Trump is doing around the world, but they got a taste of Trump's medicine for once with Greenland, which obviously denies European state sovereignty. It's a very dangerous predicament. So they very quickly were like, whoa, we don't like that. You can't treat us like we're brown. What are you doing? We're not a brown country. I know we have a lot of refugees, yeah, but that doesn't mean we're actually truly a brown country. You know, that type of attitude kicked him real quick. And then they obviously yelled at him, and then he had to back away and be like, yeah, not based, actually. Greenland, overtaking Greenland, not based.
I was being an asshole. I got caught up in the moment. I shouldn't have said it. You guys have been a great ally. And I would not want to take Greenland through military intervention, even if we could. I think it could happen, but I don't think it should happen. There it is. So yeah, if that's the thing you're talking about, then I'm on.
Asmon pivoting like an NBA 5. Yeah, this is another not so rare, not so unique Asmonfold moment. Yeah, he went from, based America first, Greenland is ours now, to getting yelled at by his audience, to folding into submission and saying, yeah, maybe it's not so based, actually. Yeah. This is what happens when you get all your opinions from your Reddit, your chat, and your Twitter feed, right? Like, he doesn't actually have any real well thought out opinions about what this means for the global design. He doesn't have like any sort of ideological conviction. He's not even like a NATO Atlanticist or anything. You know what I mean? He's not like at least when, you got guys at the American Enterprise Institute yelling at me, like, that's their job. Their job is to literally yell at me because I am ideologically not aligned with their worldview. I'm against it. I find I find NATO to be a security I find NATO to be a protection racket for the American military industrial complex, which obviously harms Americans at the domestic level, but more consequentially, I think harms everyone else around the world. And it robs Europeans of their own sovereignty and decision making. So I'm anti-NATO, and I've been yelled at quite a bit for having an anti-NATO position, especially after Russia invaded Ukraine, which for many Europeans justified NATO and made them love NATO, want to hug and kiss NATO. Okay. I hold my hands up and apologize. I didn't think you could cover him without debating his weird fans and derailing, but this is solid. Thank you. But because he's like unprincipled in general, has no principles whatsoever, and he's at the mercy of his own chat, and considering that his chat is like 60%, I believe, like majority European, of course, Europeans who love when Donald Trump is like dominating Venezuela turned around and yelled at him for treating Greenland, you know, a part of the European continent, like it was a brown country. And so he had to back down and apologize for his previous statements, coming across as callous. And now he's trying to take this like moderate, you know, reasonable middle ground approach. Stopping Russians from raping and torturing people to death is so military industrial complex. You're right. Oh, God. Ay, ay, ay. This is the reason why Trump is going to not only take Greenland, but maybe even Norway, for the record. Create your own security framework, okay? Develop sovereignty, Europe. I'm not saying keel over and die. I'm simply saying that Donald Trump is doing to the European continent from the western flank what you are fearful of Vladimir Putin doing to you from the eastern flank, okay? Taking Norway, Lamau, yeah, right. I mean, that's a joke. I brought it up as a joke point, considering that it's an oil-rich nation with its entire extraction industries being nationalized. It's basically white Venezuela. But considering what he has done to Venezuela, who knows? Considering that he's invested in further vassalizing white countries, European countries. Who knows where he may go? Maybe Canada's next. Guess who makes the advanced missiles U.S. uses and trains their troops? The only country on this planet that has any sort of sovereignty outside of the United States of America under the security umbrella of the United States of America is Israel. Okay? And in the absence of like a Norwegian APAC that was allowed to basically massage the narrative for like the last 100 years, you're okay? You're not Israel, little bro. You're not. You're not Israel, little bro. It's over, okay? Any country that's not Israel that thinks that they can continue being like a sovereign country while existing under the American security apparatus is not going to make it, okay? That's it. It's so weird seeing people defend NATO in a needs to exist because look at Ukraine, like Europe having its own defense industry wouldn't achieve the same result. You're a NORPAC stooge. I'm not trusting a thing you say. Yeah, they have nationalized oil too. And if you just take what Donald Trump has said about Venezuela and its oil, you know Donald Trump is not the biggest fan of countries that have their own oil that they're extracting from their own land and their own coastline. He doesn't like that at all. That's our oil, baby.
Domestic problems here that, you know, Greenland shouldn't really be the focus. That's my opinion.
Oh, really? Interesting.
Bored with that. So, and also, I want you to look at what's happening today, and I want you to like see where my thinking is coming from. Okay, I am looking at America turning to shit. I'm not worried about Greenland. Why am I worried about Greenland? Like, I don't. We can't even control Minnesota. Why are we going to try to take over Greenland?
Yeah. He's scaling back from his pro let's take Greenland position, but in a very like pro MAGA kind of way. Oh yeah, I just think like, you know, we should just keep deporting migrants. Actually, that's what we should be doing. Yeah. I wonder why his position is so different on Greenland as opposed to every other country. Perhaps it has something to do with the fact that his audience loves when he talks about, dominating Minnesota, but hates dominating Greenland and taking away European sovereignty. I don't know why.
Of Greenland, do they merit the risks and the potential damage being done to NATO?
Well, the run is not worth the slide in the case of a military operation against Greenland. That's why I think it's off the table. I mean, provocative language will always be out there. I mean, this is kind of a negotiating tactic. So I would say with confidence, the United States is not going to use military force against Greenland. Trying to acquire Greenland in a tighter relationship, certainly there are options. Look, we got Seward's Folly, right? 1867, we bought Alaska. Let's go buy Greenland. We can do that. If they want to, there's a seller, we can buy it. Don't know the situation regarding that. Certainly there are other relationships. Iceland was a part of Denmark as well until 1944, and they became independent, became a member of NATO. That's a potential path for Greenland as well. So in other words, there are options well below the threshold of military operation. Your question is, would military operation obviate a NATO as we know it today? Yeah, sure would.
And that would be an enormous risk, even if, and maybe even the mere suggestion of it could do things to NATO that maybe the United States long term would not want to see happen there. Major General James Spider-Marks, always great to see you. Thank you so much.
Greenland is dominating the agenda at the World Economic Forum in Davos, Switzerland. And as always, our Richard Quest has his ear to the ground and joins us now from Davos. Great to see you, Richard. I mean, no doubt that this is going to be very consequential, the conversation. So what are you hearing? Is President Trump going to get his way when it comes to Greenland?
Well, I don't know on that, and he's certainly not going to get his way on Greenland here. We're a long way off that being resolved. I think the Europeans are going to be meeting with the president over several issues, including Gaza and the setting up of the Board of Peace there. But the fact that he sent this extraordinary note to the Prime Minister of Norway, linking his muscular approach on Greenland to the fact he didn't get the Peace Prize, and now of imposing tariffs, they don't know what to do. You see, here's the problem. There is a course of action, a natural course of action that will follow the implementation of those tariffs. No question about it. You retaliate, you put other measures, you use the trade bazooka. But the Europeans don't want to do it, and they're going to be forced to, because what the United States is doing is unheard of. Despite what former Vice President Vance says, the reality is you can't just go and take another country. So the Europeans are absolutely between a hard rock and a hard place, but they will not just roll over and take this.
Yeah.
This is how Schwab and I began to say, you must give more of your rights away. Your sacrifice is the only remedy for the real pandemic. We must prepare an angrier world. As Agenda 2030 is unfurled. You will eat the bugs, sing in the metaverse. You will comply, and it will get worse. Are you ready for the new world order? No more human rights for the border. We own you. Your father's own daughter. We fight you. Feeling your problems, then blame you. For everything we do, we can feel us here. We are coming soon. If you don't stop us, we're screwed. We are here. The agenda is quite clear. Make you live in fear. He's a puppet, and I'm the puppeteer.
God, I love that. This is the greatest piece of conservative art that has ever been made. I will stand by that. This and like We Are Charlie Kirk, but I guess Charlie Kirk is like AI, so it doesn't count. But this right here is probably the greatest piece of conservative art ever made. This wasn't satire? No, this is the type of shit that your coworker watched and it one-shotted him, okay? Your coworker watched this video in like 2021 and it dramatically changed his brain chemistry, okay? It altered everything. Every part of this, like, oh, you're going to eat the bugs, you will own nothing and be happy, you're going to be a permanent renter. Like, these are all the things that people ascribe falsely to communism and socialism. They think, like, all of your right-wing coworkers think like Davos is like a socialist gathering of the world's top socialist billionaires. That's what they think. I just need you to understand. They legitimately think these billionaire liberal capitalists are actually socialist, and all of this stuff is actually not capitalism running amok, but instead more socialism. Isn't announcing a new world order at Davos the kind of thing online Trumpists would panic about? Trump's Board of Peace Charter signing ceremony Thursday at 10:30 a.m. in Davos. Anyway, let's continue.
Okay, so very interesting because we saw the British Prime Minister holding an emergency news conference just hours ago. That's after EU ambassadors hold their own meeting in Brussels. So a lot of conversations that are happening because US Treasury Secretary Scott Bessent says, and I quote, Europeans project weakness and the US projects strength. So I wonder if this is going to be a uniting force for the Europeans to come together on the right and the left.
Okay, so firstly, I think the comment by Scott Bessent yesterday was significant because this does show that it's not just the president on a whim of his own, even though if it was, he could force it. This shows that senior administration officials like Scott Bessent, at least openly or officially, are behind it. That makes it much more difficult for everybody to retaliate against. Then you've got the former vice president you were just hearing about. There is a groundswell of US views that says Greenland should be part of the United States. Where they differ is on the methods and the modalities to make it happen. The problem here is the train is leaving the station. The president has shoved everything on board and is sending it careening down. It is going to be very difficult to stop an all-out trade war at this particular rate because the Europeans cannot, note the word I say will not, cannot be seen to be weak on this issue.
I mean, it's frankly extraordinary, that letter. I've read it several times today. And just to be clear, this was a response to the Prime Minister of Norway, but also the President of Finland, who traditionally gets on really well with Donald Trump. I mean, let's just break down some of it. The tone, this is the leader of the free world. And at times, it sounds like this is the moanings of a petulant child, talking about, we had a boat that landed there too, we should have the rights as well. Also, really disturbing lines. I no longer feel an obligation to think purely of peace. That's going to be hugely worrying. I remember just a couple of weeks ago, various leaders of NATO countries were saying there's absolutely no way the US would think about invading Greenland to get hold of it. I mean, will this make them think twice? And then another line, which I think will have NATO leaders really feeling like they're banging their heads against a brick wall, is this idea that Denmark can't protect
free world implied. Yeah, it's a mere implication.
Greenland. And I think what I've heard from numerous leaders, whether it's the EU foreign policy chief, the Germans, people around the EU, is that they're not asking Denmark to protect Greenland alone. They're saying this can be done as part of NATO. And the US is obviously a key part. They're not saying you can't play a role in it. They're saying you should be playing a big role in this because you're a key member of NATO. And I think they'll be wondering, well, if you want more bases in Greenland, it's highly likely you can have them. If you're so worried about security, why have US troops been reduced from
They're like, dog, the whole point of NATO is that you can put bases wherever you want. What do you mean you just want to take the land? Like, it doesn't make any sense, sir. You already have it, you know? It's awesome. It's so funny. I can't help but laugh because it's like completely outside of our control here in the United States of America, because this is like an 80-20 issue where 80% of the country pretty much is like, don't do this. What do you mean you're taking Greenland? What the? And then obviously the 20% of the country are just the most pathetic, mouth breathing dumbasses you've ever encountered who will literally go, I didn't even know where Greenland was on a map, but if Donald Trump wants it, he should take it. He should rape Greenland now. Then me, Mr. President, my bussy is waiting for you too, Mr. President. I'm so ready. I'm so ready to receive you. After you're done Greenland, me, Mr. President. That's how they operate. But it's also kind of funny because it's like, you know, like, what are we doing here? What the are we doing here? This makes no damn sense. It doesn't make any strategic sense. It doesn't make any sense from, you know, the NATO alliances that we have already. We are, in many ways, giving the game away. We're giving the game away, for the record. Something I like to repeat over and over again. Donald Trump does away with all of the smoke and mirrors. He's just like, it's mine. I will take it. I have the power. Nothing you can say or do about it will change that matter. And it kind of cooks the liberal position, right? Liberals who believe that there is a rhyme or reason for American incursion around the world, and it's not just for imperial super profits to extract from the global south and maybe even the global north now. So I guess I just have to sit here and look at, do you approve of the military? Do you approve of using the military to take Greenland? No, 86%. 86%. That's insane, dude. Like, there is more support for Donald Trump protecting Jeffrey Epstein. What the? There are more Republicans out there who believe that Donald Trump should not reveal the Jeffrey Epstein files than there are Republicans who believe Donald Trump should militarily take over Greenland. Oh my God, it's awesome. Oh, that's amazing. The implication here is that, hold on, I gotta get the Twitter fingers going. The implication here is that Trump's protection of elite pedophiles connected to Epstein is a more popular position in his base than taking Greenland militarily. Have you considered using Grok to word your tweets? Yeah, I've considered it. Like, I've considered killing myself with a gun. Like shooting myself with a gun on camera. Those are the same level of consideration that I've had for that. I've had for using Grok to word out my tweets, dude. Yeah. At Grok, please make me sound like a moron. Grok said, bet.
The government.
What? Hasan, you literally said in your 2022 stream that socialism has never worked in practice. Meanwhile, countries like Norway, Denmark, GDP, and Finland rank top in GDP per capita happiness and social mobility. How are we ignoring real world data here? What? I said socialism has never worked in practice? What? Also, none of those countries are socialist. Am I wrong? Fact check it. Did you... Chatter, do you know who I am? I remember that. You said that in 2021. In fact... This is a clip watcher, 100%. Am I wrong? Fact check it. So we trying to play it off? Okay. Two things that you are failing to comprehend here. Number one, I don't know what I said that you misunderstood. Okay. Actually, you said it in 2020, 2019, and 2018. And I'm still saying it. I'm saying it yesterday. I'm saying it today. Socialism's never worked. Okay? But also beyond that, these countries are not socialist countries. These countries are social democracies with higher degrees of socialization. And not only that, but also I use them as examples of where we must move, what direction we must move in. Okay? So you're right. As far as per capita happiness, social mobility, and all this other stuff, these countries are actually thriving as opposed to the United States of America. And the only reason why they're thriving, the right-winger will look at that and say, well, there's like social cohesion born out of being like, predominantly white nations. Okay? However, that's not the real reason. The real reason why these countries have higher ranks on all this stuff is because they have more socialization. Norway being the example that I use regularly with respect to like Venezuela. Norway has its entire extraction industries nationalized. And they make better use of that revenue from the process of extraction than the United States of America does, clearly. You did say that recently. I forget the conversation, but they dumbass not realizing the why. You said it only works short term or something like that, but you didn't specifically explain why it was implied that was because of Western intervention. This is a funny way to like try to own me, though, to say like you think socialism doesn't work. So we trying to play it off in general, bro, whatever makes you happy. Brother, just link the clip and we can discuss it. Is it this? If given to you, all of that wealth, if distributed across the, like why socialism always fails, like maybe he saw that and he thought I meant like it always fails. This was clearly from the only live stream you did in 2022. I guess, bro, whatever makes you happy. Oh, okay, that's what IG means. No, just like, if you want me to clarify a position, I'm going to find the clip. Okay, you find the clip, and we'll give you the perms so you can send it. Norway has a population of 5.6 million, but easier to feed and socialize a small population. Where China go wrong, 20 plus million dead. China is a transitional socialist state, okay? Led by a communist party, okay? It is a transitional socialist state. This is true. And even then, it's not like a full-blown socialist state or a communist state at all, right? Like a complete communist state. Having said that, the reason why I say Norway and all these other countries are social democracies is because they are still capitalist. Because capital still controls everything. And the reason why you're making this silly argument is because you think that economies don't scale. And you know the counterexample I would use is China in this situation. So you had to say, oh, well, China went wrong because even though they're socialist and they are actually a functioning country that has been able to develop itself and has become a massive global superpower that is the manufacturing engine of the entire planet, you have to like add something else to it to be like, well, it's still a failure, right? It's still a failure, 20 million dead. That's famine. Mismanagement and famine. And since the last great famine, China has not experienced any famine. So while that was a horrifying period of time for Chinese people, the reality of the matter is famine is no longer an issue at all. It seems a bit more complicated in countries like Norway. There's competing power centers of the state, capital, and labor, at least as I understand. Yes. Is a country socialist if it's just official state ideology? A country like Norway is more socialized than other self-declared socialist countries historically. Norway is very small. It seems a bit complicated in countries like Norway. There's competing power centers. Exactly, but capital always dominates. Capital always dominates the state, and capital always dominates labor, as long as capital still has control over the flows of capital. That, I think, is one of the major reasons why I say China is a transitional socialist state, because of, one, land use, and also, two, like the control over flows of capital. That, I think, is the major difference. Is China then so much different to Norway? Yes, that is a profound difference. Controlling the flows of capital is the most consequential difference between what I would declare to be a transitional socialist state versus a full-blown capitalist state. That is the major difference. But like I said, when I'm talking about the United States of America, especially in the interim, especially in the short term, like, I'm perfectly fine with advocacy towards a greater degree of socialization and expansion of the existing welfare state, things of that nature. And the reason for why I advocate for that in the United States of America is because the United States of America doesn't even have those things and thinks those things are communist. You got to work within the confines of what's acceptable, what's permissible, what's possible. There's a new account in YouTube that streams you live. Is this legal? I don't think so. And I didn't know that they were doing that. And link it to me, and I'll figure out what to do. That explains why someone earlier said something about the YouTube chat. What is the account? And the only reason why I have an issue with that is because they will try and use those VODs to strike down other, fan accounts and stuff like that. My fear would be if he was like nefariously re-uploading the live stream to YouTube so that he could like strike down other people's YouTube clips and stuff like that. I've heard you say socialism never works many times. You were always making fun of anti-communist lies every time. Yeah. That's why I was shocked when that chatter came in and tried to say, you clearly said socialism doesn't work in 2022. And I was actually a bit interested in what he was going to pull out of his ass to make it seem like I'm a anti-socialist at any point. Yeah, you keep repeating socialism doesn't work right now. Exactly. I keep saying those words. You know? Lenin, using state and revolution as my basis, would likely argue that Norway's a bourgeois state and therefore would side with bourgeois interests more frequently, while China, being a worker state, even if nominally, would side with labor over capital more frequently. Well, the whole point is that as long as capital remains in power, okay, it will slowly but surely erode labor protections, because the goal of capital is to consistently improve its profit margins when profit rates have a tendency to decline. And therefore, they will try to squeeze the labor force, because labor is the most malleable aspect of the productive forces. They will either seek out other labor markets, as we have done so. This is why imperialism is a necessity, or the highest stage of capitalism, dominating the rest of the planet. And through that domination, you just have new labor markets that are always going to work at for pennies on the dollar, as opposed to the domestic labor force. Okay? So that's one way that capital continues dominating. Okay? The other way that capital continues dominating is by squeezing the labor power that exists at the domestic level. Slowly but surely engaging in displationary mechanisms, whether it be automation or whether it be forcing the existing labor force to do more work for the same price point, same wages. And as long as capital still continues to own the economy, it will continue to erode whatever kind of safety nets that exist. This is why social democracies, as we're seeing right now in the European continent, are going through this process where they are engaging in austerity measures, like self-imposed measures that are ruining the living standards of the working class. The only time when America has experienced tremendous prosperity is when FDR leaned into the anger and resentment that the working class had. And we're still eating good off of the benefits of like a crumb of social democracy in the country. But America in and of itself is proof that social democracy it has a shelf life, right? Social democracy exists on a timeline where it will inevitably erode all of the gains made by trade unionists, socialists, and communists alike. And that same erosion is taking place in Europe right now. Anyway, let's continue with American domination now.
Thousands to a few hundred. You know, if you want to have access to rare earth and other precious minerals on Greenland, you can apply for the permits. So they're saying you don't need to do this alone. It doesn't need to be us versus you. We can all do it under NATO and be safer together. They all agree that the Arctic does need more security. That's why they sent this exploratory mission last week, they say, that antagonized Donald Trump and led him to...
Pretending that the will of the people is done in China is pretty nuts. It's basically a dictatorship with a heavy hand to spank anyone who speaks out of line. Yes, I know. I'm a Westerner as well. I grew up in Turkey, and now I live in the United States of America. So yes, for Westerners, the only form of domination and the only form of repression that matters is when the state tells you what you can and can't say. And I understand that that's a silly thing that the Chinese government has done, and albeit violent thing at times as well, a very violent one. Having said that, however, if you think that the Chinese government has not dramatically improved the living standards of every single Chinese person over the course of the last, I don't know, 4 decades or so, you are denying reality, right? You're denying reality. For Western liberals in general, check my argument is about how they have a dictator and no election for him. Yes, they have a different structure of governance that relies on meritocracy. It's actually, the elections happen in the local level, okay? But the top positions are actually internally assigned. You're talking about the standing committee structure that exists, but the standing committee still gets its notes from all of the local elected representatives. Of course they have elections in China. They just don't elect Xi Jinping. They have a different governance structure that is hyper meritocratic. And at the end of the day, you have to look at the results. And the results are that there has been tremendous material improvements on the lives of every single Chinese person, so much so that the Chinese population's approval ratings for its own government is far, far higher than any Western nation. There is not a single Western nation that has a similar level of approval for their own governments as the Chinese people's approval is for the Communist Party of China. Not even Marx Carney? No, not even close. And that's why you have to resort back to, they get clapped for even sharing pictures, okay? Like, or being a woman watching gay porn. Wait, what? Okay, they can't even speak out. Okay, once again, can you trust those approval rating polls? I mean, the reason why I trust those approval rating polls is because people would assume that this is actually a Chinese approval rating poll, right? Like, oh, it's not relevant. It's obviously fake. The state made it up. Except the approval rating polls that I'm talking about are conducted by Harvard. And Harvard has no interest in making China look good, you know? So yes, while there is state repression, especially in terms of free speech, there is no free speech in China, obviously. There are certain things you can discuss endlessly, and then there are certain things you can't discuss. Having said that, and there's also a lot more state-level control over like silly things that we consider to be stupid. Okay? We consider understandably, and I also agree with you on this, like we consider, like China, for example, fears that there is an upcoming crisis with their birth rates. And in an effort to stop it, I guess, in an effort to get ahead of that, they think they can just move culture in a certain direction. And in an effort to crack down on that, they will take a heavy-handed approach in censorship over, I don't know, like the more feminine-looking men, for example. They want like more manly-looking men. They want to present themselves as more masculine. They want to dominate culture in that regard. It's like state design over where the culture should go. This is absolutely a foreign concept for Americans, right? Even though we have similar things that we do, manufacturing consent and the like, but that's usually for foreign policy. It's never over like silly shit. Okay? So they do stuff like that I don't agree with and also criticize. But at the end of the day, existence is more complex than that. Okay? If that's the only thing you care about, okay, well, Americans can yell endlessly about their politicians, as I do on a daily fucking basis, right? We can call our president a pedophile. We can do all of this stuff. And for the time being, we don't get punished for it. We don't get imprisoned for it. But nothing changes. Do you understand? And there are still plenty of undemocratic forces at play, even within this supposedly liberal bastion of democracy and freedom. In China, you can actually complain and get results. But you can't say certain things, and there is no guarantee that the state won't take a heavy-handed approach tomorrow over certain things that you obviously identify with. Do you see what I mean? No corruption in China, obviously. That's not what I said. I never said that. Corruption certainly, especially before Xi Jinping, existed heavily in China. Xi Jinping has been incredibly heavy-handed and incredibly intolerant towards any sort of corruption. This is not to say China is a perfect nation. I'm just saying that there's a lot of misunderstandings about China, especially here in the United States of America, due to state propaganda, ironically enough. But again, this is wrong. Like, look, where is it? Someone in the chat was talking about, I don't know why we're talking about China, but do you really think China is socialist simply because it has a strong state that controls capital and markets? Yes, I do. And socialism doesn't mean woke or progressive, for the record. Okay? It is an economic organization of society. I think China is a transitional socialist state. Yes, because of the things that you just mentioned. Socialism has nothing to do with being woke or being, pro-minority rights at all. Like, that's not what it is. Socialism is just an economic organization of society. Having said that, you can and should still focus on social liberties as well. Okay? Of course. People often mistake social leftism with economic leftism. Yeah. This is a filter to shut down critical thinking in taking improvements China has made and incorporating into our society to improve the lives of the people on the lower end of the bracket. Yes. Is it true that drinking coffee is illegal in China? No. China has a huge coffee culture. I mean, I was just there. There's like there are Chinese coffee shops. There are Chinese coffee shops that are now opening up in the United States of America. State capitalism isn't socialism, my guy. I know, guys. No, you're right. You have perfected. You have built communism in your mind. It's going to happen. USSR was a state capitalist enterprise. China is a state capitalist enterprise. It's not real socialism. Okay. You build it, dude. You built it. You built it in your mind. The real socialism is the French Commune. That's it. It's the only time it's ever existed. That's why I was joking earlier when I said, like, MLK was a social fascist. Because he wasn't revolutionary enough. He just wanted to take some of the imperial super profits and redistribute it more evenly amongst the working class, and including black working class individuals as well. He had bourgeois interests. He did not want to immediately implement communism, and therefore was a social fascist. Heck are you talking about? USSR was never capitalist. No free economic zones up in here. Brother, they called the USSR, the same people that call China a state capitalist enterprise would say the same about the USSR. Okay? And also, ironically enough, the free economic trade zones have been greatly beneficial for China, including the reforms that came through as well. Foreign capital played a role in China being able to develop. Okay? Anyway. Building whole process people's democracy in China from Progressive International. Introduction in Minzu Village. Okay, I don't care about this stuff. Does this get into the actual Harvard study or not? Here we report data from several major studies. First, the Harvard University Ask Center for Democratic Governance and Innovation has maintained what constitutes the most extensive independent assessment of Chinese citizen satisfaction with governmental performance, tracking popular attitudes since 2003. Their 2020 report, Understanding CCP Resilience, Surveying Chinese Public Opinion Through Time, revealed broad popular support for the Chinese government at all levels. The study's authors, and for the record, I'm going to explain to you why, okay? Because a lot of people, when they actually see their own version of governance, okay? And they think, oh, they think it's super popular because, yeah, see, this pig immediately goes, North Korea has great approval ratings. And I can't tell if that person is being sarcastic or if that person is trying to say China is like North Korea or if that person is a Jusha supporter. So my mistake, if you're actually a Jusha dick rider, I troll. Okay, good troll chatter. So why is this important? It's very simple. I saw it with my own two eyes when I went to Tiananmen Square for the flag raising ceremony, a concept that is objectively foreign to me, as objectively foreign as like a state trying to dominate culture with a heavy hand, or even punishing people for speaking out against things that I consider silly, right? If not violent at times. But why did we see the Chinese aunties travel from all different parts of China to go and see a flag get raised for like 5 minutes when it was freezing temperatures in Tiananmen Square? Why were they rushing Tiananmen Square to just see the flag raising ceremony, a thing that happens every day at 4:30 in the morning? The reason why is because they have actually seen dramatic material improvements in their lives over the course of the last 30 years. Okay? That's it. You can't make people do that at gunpoint. You can't make people do that by force. People only do that because they lived it and they love it. That's it. That's it. Americans are heavily propagandized as well. You can say that about China too. You can be like, oh, well, the state is heavy-handed in their, cultural enforcement. The state is heavy-handed in their propaganda. And that's the reason why these people have been deluded into loving their country. Okay. But it wouldn't show this level of resilience over time. The reason why these polls show a very different reality than the one you actually hear in American news and in Western media is because, well, one, you rarely ever talk to Chinese foreign students in a sincere manner, I suspect. Or at least in my experience, many of them are fearful because they know how much the Americans despise China and are fearful of their government. So they won't give you like their full-throated endorsement over the government. But the real reason is because they have seen the noticeable improvement in their lives. If America did a similar thing, if America had some semblance of social democracy, American patriotism would be much higher too. People would be very much on board with the American government. Look at FDR, one of the most historically popular presidents of all time. There's a reason for it, because he made people's lives better. It's that simple. It turns out if the government is efficient and if the government is effective at improving people's material conditions, the people like it. Even when the government, on the other hand, has really restrictive or repressive tools that they utilize that the liberal mind cannot comprehend. Like, we look at that and we go, how the f- are these people not like revolting against the government? How is that possible? Well, it's because, at least from my own anecdotal conversations that I've had with Chinese people, okay, is there are certain things you can't say. And as long as you don't say certain things, your life is fine. If that is the highest priority for you, is to be able to call the president a pedophile, for example, and it's not even, there's no irony in me saying this, because my entire job is to be a political dissenter. Okay, like I would not be able to exist as a Chinese boy. Okay, There is no Chinese Hasanabi that looks to the Chinese government and like routinely criticizes the Chinese government in the same way that I exist in the United States of America. Someone who lives in the United States of America and criticizes the American government all the time. Okay? It's just funny because like this is a concept that even the Nelk boys understood, right? two of the Nelks were talking to one another after their China trip. Steiny was not. Steiny is one of the Nelks. The other one is Kyle. Steiny was not able to come into China because he had some passport issues. But Kyle, coming fresh off of his trip in China, turned around and said to the other Nelk, Steiny, listen, China is not like the way I thought it was at all. Okay? It's awesome. It's dope. You can party. You can say whatever the you want, as long as you don't say certain things. You don't talk about the party. You don't talk about the leaders. Then you can talk about whatever the you want, and you can party. You can do whatever you want. It's true. The average Chinese existence is not all that different than the average American's existence. Look at my previous message. It shows why there's so much support. This is why there's popular support. I mean, this is part of it, yes. By the way, it's ironic because these are circuit court judges that travel on horseback across grasslands and valleys, turning them into open-air courtrooms, helping people in remote areas to resolve disputes. But like Xi Jinping also comes not from a circuit court judge background, but like Xi Jinping's job initially was to basically work in like the Chinese version of Mississippi until he worked through the party ranks and secured a position of leadership. But this is one aspect of it. The other aspect of it is like extreme efficiency when it comes to dealing with certain disputes, a hyper focus on performance. And here are the results. Understanding CCP resilience, surveying Chinese public opinion throughout time revealed broad popular support for the Chinese government at all levels. I bet you've never heard that before unless you've heard me bring these results up in the past. The study's authors, operating within an analytical framework that initially presumed China's authoritarian character would generate legitimacy crises, instead documented consistent increases in citizen satisfaction. Central government approval reached 93% by 2016, with provincial governments maintaining 82% support rates, with consistent increases over time. Significantly, the research identified that marginalized populations in economically disadvantaged inland regions demonstrated comparatively higher increases in satisfaction, suggesting, in line with Chinese thinking of the function of whole process people's democracy, that states' responsiveness to material conditions constitute a key mechanism with its legitimacy. Improve people's lives, and they will actually like your government. Even if your government actually has, from a Western perspective, plenty of issues with like repression, right? That's it. 82% is an insane SimCity style I cheated number. The authors summarized their results as follows. We find that since the start of the survey in 2003, Chinese citizen satisfaction with government has increased virtually across the board. From the impact of broad national policies to the conduct of local town officials, Chinese citizens rate the government as more capable and effective than ever before. Interestingly, more marginalized groups in poorer inland regions are actually comparatively more likely to report increases in satisfaction. That's the other reason why when people were talking about like minority rights in China, what they fail to comprehend is, with the exception of the dragnets and mass apprehension, mass detention, and work camps that were designed in Xinjiang, China actually has had a long-standing tradition of minority rights for quite a while. Like they literally have had affirmative action 300 fucking years ago, like straight up state-sanctioned affirmative action in some way, shape, or form. Now, of course, that's complicated because like you have different ethnic groups in China. I think it's like what 56, and there have been instances where like one of those minority groups was actually running the entire it's not 6-7, it's 56 different ethnic groups. And besides that, like people think the Manchus were running China. That's not what I'm talking about though. Like there are different dynasties, right? But outside of that, even Han Chinese, which is the majority group, is still incredibly diverse. They have different languages, for example, different cultural attitudes, like regional cultural attitudes. China's a very large country. So even the Han Chinese is not like a singular group either. But China has had of affirmative action initiatives in general, which is ironic because that's also another thing that I used to joke about before I went to China, about like having a Chinese hog, Hao Peking, who was mad that minority groups were getting positions that they did not deserve. And it turns out there is actually a statement like that. There is actually a sentiment such as that one that some Chinese people actually hold, where they think if you do something to a minority group, the police will always side with the minority group against you, even if they are of lower character, was what I was told. Even if they are ruffians, for example, that are engaging in bullying behavior or violence or criminal, doing criminal shit, the police will always side with the ethnic minority over the Han Chinese. Now, I don't think that's the case, obviously, but I'm saying that there is still that reactionary sentiment expressed even by Chinese people. People are not monolithic, no matter where they're from, and a certain percentage of people will always be contrarians, dislike the government, or be unhappy. That's why I find surveys like this to be very unreliable. There's nothing on earth that can get a 93% approval, let alone a state. I wouldn't be surprised if it was like 70%, but 93 is not very believable. All right, we'll take it up with Harvard. I understand why you feel that way. They're getting Assad numbers out here, but these results are consistent with the data from the Asian Barometer study, which in 2015 found that 87% of respondents in China had a great deal or quite a lot of trust in the national government. So too with the World Values Survey, which consistently shows that over 90% of people in China report a great deal or quite a lot of trust in the national government. In 2018, the most recent wave, trust was at 95%, one of the highest levels in the world. Complementing these findings, the Alliance of Democracies, established by former NATO leadership and Danish government officials, has produced annual reports of the Democracy Perception Index since 2019. Through partnership with the German market research firm Latana and the AOD, employs methodological approaches specifically designed to mitigate response bias and self-censorship concerns. The 2024 findings reveal that 92% of Chinese respondents consider democracy important, 79% characterize their country as democratic, and 91% perceive their government as serving broad popular interests rather than elite constituencies. Each of these figures was higher than in almost any other country in the world. This is not just the Harvard study. Like, do you understand? These are not organizations that are invested in making China look good. People in disbelief simply because it doesn't happen here. Yeah, I mean, when I was young, a trip from my hometown to Beijing took an 11-hour overnight sleeper train. I can now take an express high-speed rail direct line to Beijing for $32 on a day trip in 2.5 hours. The change in my own lifetime is something that no Westerner will ever comprehend. Exactly. This is impossible to understand by Western conceptualization. You will never understand it. Okay? The only thing that I can, I guess, kind of compare it to is Claudia Sheinbaum and the success built by the Morena Party in Mexico. And they have done only modest expansions of the social safety net. And even then, the Mexican population has responded with a similar, almost too cohesive positive approval rating. But time and time again, if you look at like different countries around the world, there are obviously different factors that will, create nationalistic fervor. One example that is on the opposing side of this argument, the counter example, I guess, is 9/11. Post 9/11, there was a rallying around the flag effect in the United States of America, and George W. Bush's approval rating skyrocketed to like 91%. Right? So there are other instances where things like that can happen as well. But these are resilient numbers. These are numbers that haven't like swung as wildly as George W. Bush in one term, right? Also, look, you said FDR did China shit and he never got over 61% of the vote. Brother, 61% of the vote is China shit for American standards, though. That was the reason why I used FDR as an example. So yeah. Worth noting that Bush had the highest and lowest approval ratings for a president in his lifetime. Exactly. Anyway, and far ahead on each of these metrics than respondents in the US, France, Britain, the classic liberal democracies. For the record, I'm not trying to say that like the Chinese form of governance is the best. It's just that I'm simply saying there are certain things that every government can do to really bring up their own approval ratings. This is my theory for change. Okay? Do you get what I mean? I believe that the most effective mechanism of control is still the Western liberal style of making people feel like they have freedom when they technically kind of don't, right? And as long as you're the dominant power, you can have free speech. As long as you're the dominant power, you can have a guy like Hasan Piker talk shit about the president. Because I don't represent a significant enough threat to the powers that be. Capital is so domineering and so powerful that it doesn't matter. I can be one of the top Amazon content creators on a platform that Jeff Bezos owns and then be the single largest donator to the Amazon labor union, even though it was private initially and then it was leaked. So now I can talk about it, right? Because that's how much power capital has. I think none of us should believe any approved proposal put it over at 90%. That's not how humanity works. It's never worked that way. Be a bit more skeptical, everyone. Think about everyone. Even against something totally perfect, at least 10% of the population will be contrarians or bitter. Monolithic opinion is next to impossible. Okay, the point is that regardless of like how high this score is, it's objectively so much higher than every other country. That's my point. Maybe it turns out that what people perceive as like the best possible form of governance, if democracy is the best possible form of governance, what people actually substitute for democracy is improvement of material conditions. And if you judge it off of that, China, of course, is much more successful than all these other countries. And therefore, it outperforms all these other countries. You understand? This is virtually impossible to explain to people who perceive our, two-party duopoly as totally independent from one another, like two warring factions that are ideologically opposed to one another on issues that matter, and have deluded themselves into thinking that like American democracy actually cares about your perspective in any way, shape, or form. It's going to be impossible for me to explain it to you, but the average Chinese person, not like someone from Taiwan or Hong Kong, but like the average Chinese person living in mainland China that you are never going to hear from, basically, believes that the Chinese party, whether they're correct or not, doesn't matter, but they believe that the Communist Party of China is representing the wishes of the masses. They believe that the Chinese Revolution and the People's Republic of China and the implementation of communism in China was a way to take the ownership away from the landed gentry and the previous formations and give it back to the people. Okay? That's how they see it. That is how they see it. Anyway, let's get back to our democracy now.
Announced these potential tariffs on the 8 countries that did that, but they really aren't getting through, it seems, this message that we're not against you, we're trying to do this with you.
Just talk to us a little bit more about the EU, Siobhan, because there's talk, isn't there, of some pretty chunky tariffs in retaliation.
My Chinese wife is really impressed with your knowledge, proud of you. Thank you. It's the highest honor I can receive.
93 billion euros?
Yeah. Now, listen, I think the last year has been really tough at times for many EU leaders, and they've had to bite their tongue when it comes to dealing with the US president, particularly, for example, the way that he seems to have given Russia preferential treatment, the way he's treated President Putin in comparison to the rough treatment that we've seen for President Zelensky time and again. But I think what has happened now with these tariffs is many are saying enough is enough. They frankly, in many corners, are talking about bullying and that they have to stand up to bullies. We had a news conference today from the German Vice Chancellor, and he said this: "I have no interest in an escalation and do not search for one. We're ready to find solutions. We're offering our hand, but we are not prepared to let ourselves be blackmailed." And similar messaging coming out from Sweden, for example. So what can the EU do? Well, listen, they don't want to pick a fight with the US. They have a huge trading interests with the US. They are key allies in NATO. So the first thing they're going to be looking to do, I think, is diplomacy and trying to send out some of those traditional Trump whisperers, particularly behind the scenes at Davos. So they've got this opportunity to try and do that. I know, for example, that the Germans are planning to have a meeting with Trump either on Wednesday or Thursday. If all of that behind the scenes whispering fails, then there's an extraordinary meeting of EU leaders on Thursday. Well, they'll talk about next steps. Now, possible next steps are unfreezing, as you were saying, this 93 billion euro tariff package, which has been frozen since July, but could come back online against the US from the 6th of February. That's one option. Another option is the so-called trade bazooka. This is something that Emmanuel Macron, the French president, has been talking about over the weekend. This is the anti-coercion mechanism.
Harris campaign asked Tim Walz if he's a Chinese agent. No! Brother, that's awesome. Oh my God, that is awesome. Holy shit. Walz was also asked about foreign ties during Harris' vetting, sources tell CNN. Oh, because he went to China. Oh, we'll do it. We'll do it again. We'll go back to the Josh Shapiro story because I covered it briefly yesterday and I think it's really stupid. Oh, also speaking of China, walking around Chongqing, you can see how iShowSpeed was here signs in various restaurants. I am the most jealous man in the United States of America right now. There is no one more jealous than me. I am Lemon Bro through and through. I will never be iShowSpeed. I will never be seen as a Chinese boy. It's just never going to happen. There ain't no Hasan signs anywhere. You know what I mean? At most, we got a Hasan Pike delegation was here sign. Yeah, it's for likely for living overseas. They ask a version of this question on the SF-86 if you literally just know anyone who lives in a foreign country. You glaze China the most, but Speed mogs you, I'm afraid. Don't be afraid. It's true. He mogs the out of me, dude. Brother, I have Chinese Hasanabi heads that get together and organize locally and have fun, and they wouldn't even invite me. They wouldn't even invite me to their hangout session when I was in their city. Okay, that's how emotionless I am. That the Hasan Piker fan club that gets together did not want me to attend a fan meeting. Kind of weird to want to go to your own fan club. Why is that weird? That's awesome. If a scenario like the Kazakh oil workers mass striking for their being treated horribly on their Chinese oil companies 6 years ago was repeated, would you still support the Chinese no matter what? When have I supported the Chinese no matter what? Like, we're talking about Chinese domestic control. I never talked about Chinese companies having the exact same horrible work conditions or just having a very hands-off attitude about what takes place in countries beyond their loans and beyond their development. This is what's so frustrating about it. Everybody always has this like idiotic approach where it's like, oh, you said something. You said something that I'm not used to hearing about China. So you must be unconditionally and uncritical about, like, you know, how China operates. I don't like China for some weird, like, spiritual reason, okay? I like what the Chinese government has done for the Chinese people. I want the American government to do that for the American people. Do you understand me? If the Chinese government, for example, tomorrow decided we are actually implementing tremendous reforms, we're going to let all the billionaires that are a part of the party run the country. We've decided we're abolishing the standing committee. It's over. We are doing full-blown capitalism. We are going to do extraction of natural resources in the global south in the exact same way that the Western world was doing. We are going to do what America is doing. I would say China, okay? Like, that's it. Yeah, it's like you spoke favorably of Mamdani. Does that mean you approve of the Kunduz hospital strike? Exactly. Oh, you like Zohran Mamdani as mayor of New York? Well, you must have loved the move bombing. You see how stupid that sounds? You see how dumb that sounds? Oh, you like Eugene Debs? Oh, you like Bernie Sanders? Well, I guess you also like that the founders were slavers, huh? I guess you love chattel slavery. No, I don't actually. What is so frustrating with my analysis is that I apply a consistent logic to China as I do to America. Like, for example, when I say the American Revolution was good, okay, that doesn't mean that it was perfect, or that doesn't mean that like the American Revolution against the British Empire was a good thing. Okay, it was a good thing. It gained America sovereignty and independence. Okay, from being from remaining a settler colonial state that was completely controlled by the British Empire. Okay, but that doesn't mean that the slavers that did it were good people overall. I have the capacity to see the good and bad in historical figures. When I talk about Mao Zedong, for example, I'm not defending the Cultural Revolution, or I'm not defending the genuine damage that the Chinese population took in the collectivization efforts that took place. Okay, there are always going to be mistakes. Yeah, I love Mao Zedong. I hate sparrows, dude. I hate them. We need to do a sparrow genocide ASAP. That's why I like Mao Zedong. The birds. Like, you know what I mean? It's stupid. It's a very stupid assessment.
It's never been used before in the EU, but if they unleash this, then essentially it would put restrictions on things like investments, banking, access to markets. It would be really painful. These are serious measures, and they would hit the EU as well. But I do think many now are feeling that
you're a Chinese agent. You're not even hiding it anymore.
They have to stand up because, frankly, if they don't,
China is literally doing all the things you claim they're not. You're a Chinese spy. I swear to God. 52-month subscriber. Is what I would say before taking my schizo meds. Okay, god damn it, dude. Stop baiting me, bro. Stop! Oh, okay. Hasan Reactions, one of the best ones in the React channel.